Go ahead and get started. And so last week we looked at God creating the angels and the foundations of the earth. We saw that some of the angels rebelled against God, and because God will never allow evil to remain in his presence, he cast these rebellious angels out of heaven away from his presence. And then also last week, we also saw how God finished creating the earth and all living things, including humans, which he created in his image to be like him. God blessed the humans by sharing his authority with them and telling them to be fruitful and multiply, continuing in creation. We learned humans were given the ability to choose and ultimately choose to disobey God and attempt to manage right and wrong for themselves apart from God. And again, last week, God will not allow evil and rebellion to remain in his presence. So he cast Adam and Eve out of the garden, away from his presence. God continued to show his care for the humans by not destroying them, and also, sorry, my ear just started ringing, weird. And also creating clothing for them out of animal skins so they would not be naked and ashamed outside of the garden. So what really stuck with you from our time last week? Anything? Yeah. That God casting people out of his presence because of sin? You know. What else? Anything? Still asleep?
Well, his provision is not contingent upon our obedience.
Yeah. I think that's a really good... I'm going to repeat it because of the people online. So, God's provision is not contingent on our obedience. So just like, I think what you're talking about is that he provided clothes for them after they were expelled from the garden. And so that's really good. I think that's an important thing to remember. We often think about God, like for me, this is what I think of. We think about God and his love and his kindness and stuff, and we forget about his justice. And we forget that he is holy and cannot have sin in his presence. And so he doesn't allow it just to remain. So the reason they were expelled is because they chose not to be obedient, and so they chose to sin. So
That's one of our first glimpses of grace, right?
yes.
Our undeserved favor. It accompanies his justice. The grace is always there.
Yes.
But they
Yeah.
don't deserve it.
Yeah, they...
There's a comment saying, even though God knew what humans would do, he chose to go forward and create us anyway, even though we broke his heart.
Okay, that's good. And that's another thing. The heartbrokenness part of that we, it really did like hurt God to expel people because he didn't want to, but it was a have to kind of thing because of his justice. So, all right. So we're gonna move on today. And we're going to start with the story of two brothers. And so after leaving the garden, Adam and Eve had two sons named Cain and Abel. When they grew up, Cain became a farmer, and Abel became a shepherd. At harvest time, Cain brought to God a gift of his farm produce, and Abel brought several of the very best lambs from his flock. God accepted Abel and his offering of the lambs, but he did not accept Cain and his offering. This made Cain very angry and upset. "Why are you so angry?" God asked him. "Why do you look so down? Won't you be accepted if you do what is right? But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at your door, waiting to attack and destroy you, and you must bring it under control." Later, Cain suggested to his brother, Abel, "Let's go out into the fields." While they were there, Cain attacked and killed his brother. This was the first murder described in the Bible. Afterwards, God asked Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" "I don't know," Cain replied. "Am I supposed to keep track of him wherever he goes?" But God said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. You are now banished from the ground, you have corrupted with your brother's blood. No longer will it produce abundant crops for you, no matter how hard you work. From now on, you will be a homeless fugitive on the earth, constantly wandering from place to place." Cain replied to God, "My punishment is more than I can handle. You have removed me from my land and from your presence. Man, I'm having a hard time talking this morning. You have made me a wandering fugitive. All who see me will be..." Let me try to say that again. "All who see me will try to kill me." God replied, "No, they will not kill you. Anyone who tries to harm you will receive 7 times your punishment." So God put a mark on Cain to warn anyone who might try to kill him. Then Cain left God's presence and traveled to the land east of the garden. Why do you think Cain killed his brother? Jealousy. So, anything else about that? Just jealousy? You think there's anything else? Or I'm just asking. I'm not saying there is. I'm just... Accepted? Is that the word jealousy because it wasn't accepted, right? Okay. Say it again. He felt like he wasn't accepted. Well, it says God didn't accept him, so that's, and then there's some... Yeah. Okay, nothing. All right. Why do you think God accepted one offering and not the other?
What I've read in my Bible, because it kind of goes into detail sometimes,
Yeah.
is that Cain was just giving it to God because oh, I have to. Well, Abel gave to him because it was I want to give you stuff, and that's why.
Okay.
They're asking why wasn't the offering accepted. Sorry, don't know the backstory.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that Cain just gave the offering and because he had to, and Abel gave because he wanted to? Okay. Anybody else? Huh?
I think it's less of what their actions were and more where their heart was and the reason behind their actions, because it's or at least I see it as, the widow putting 5 coins in the offering box. It's how you bring it and your attitude surrounding that, not what you bring.
Okay, it's about the attitude. His attitude wasn't right. Cain's attitude wasn't right. Abel's had the right attitude. One of the things it says is that Abel brought the best and Cain brought a offering. He just brought a offering, right? So, and Abel brought the best of what he had. So I think that's God's first interaction with Cain. What is God doing? Okay. So you think God's not accepting it was testing him? Okay. Anybody else?
I think it's a matter of discipline.
Yeah.
He's disciplining him to teach him,
Yeah.
and just like he does with us. You can take it and see the good from it, or it can make us angry and we can push away.
The answer was that he was disciplining Cain, and that can often push people towards what is right or away from what is right, depending on the person's attitude. Anybody else? I think he was kind of like a father. He's treating him like a father would and say, hey, look, your attitude's kind of not right here. And if you don't watch out, it's going to get you in a lot of trouble. So, let's see. What was God's reaction to the murder?
I'd say kind of like disappointment that he didn't listen to him.
Okay, he was disappointed. Okay. Yeah. He was disappointed that he lied, but he also disappointed that it happened. I think God was not just disappointed but angry because it says that Abel's blood cried out to him. That's an interesting phrase for us to think about. Why didn't God just ignore what Cain had done? And what punishment did Cain deserve?
Well, I guess there's two questions in one.
Yeah.
Well, to answer the first question would be because God seeks justice, or God is justice.
Okay.
So he carried that out through whatever confronting Cain and punishing him. And
Okay.
the punishment should have been death. But God gave away. Is there a scapegoat in this?
No. Stay within the story. That's kind of our discussion's going to be. This story and the last story kind of go together. And so
So why wasn't Cain just killed for his sin?
why wasn't?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because of God's grace.
They also teach him kind of like a lesson. Like, so hopefully he would learn, even though he really didn't.
Yeah.
More of a way, so he hopefully would learn.
Okay.
I think it's also a form of a way to where, like, let's just say, for example, with like prison, a lot of people would prefer the death penalty compared to spending the rest of their life there. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like a form of it, to where he's not just gonna,
Yeah.
take you out of it and then totally you're like, then you're done.
Yeah.
As in to where you're gonna keep them there and be like, hey, you're gonna learn and you're gonna stay here and you're gonna have to go through all of it.
Okay. So
What I'm saying is why didn't God just enact punishment of death on him?
why didn't he? Yeah. Well, I think the part of the Cain did deserve death, just like Adam and Eve deserved to die right when they sinned. But God doesn't repay evil with evil. And so he showed fairness and grace, but it's still punishment. So they did eventually die, right? Adam and Eve did eventually die. Cain eventually dies. That's part of the punishment for sin. But they deserve to die right then. That's but God shows this mercy and grace. We all deserve to die for our sins immediately. That's what it says. But God shows us mercy and grace, and I think there's a hope in here of what God is wanting Cain to do too. Right? Can't repent if you die immediately, right? Yeah, I think so. The reason he doesn't want anybody to kill him is because he wants him to come back. So, what do you think Abel's blood was saying or crying out for? My brother killed me. Is that yeah. 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 Okay. Okay, so let me see if I can kind of repeat that. Yeah, is that you think his brother was crying out because he was hurt by what his brother did? Oh, is that kind of what you're? Yeah. What about justice? That his blood was crying out for justice because that's what has happened. Injustice has happened. So Abel's blood is crying out for justice before God. What do we learn about humans in this story? All right.
We are imperfect. We do see things like
Yeah.
jealousy or like, I guess, laziness and determination
Yeah.
of Cain bringing an offering.
Yeah.
But, but basically we do see some of the elements of human nature through this story.
Yeah.
And I think we can see too that just doing something because we're supposed to do it is not pleasing to God.
Yeah.
Like just going to church just because we're supposed to go to church.
Yeah.
What about being lukewarm, right? I mean, is it just religion? Are we giving our best because, hey, I'm preaching to the choir for myself? But
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, are we just doing it because we're supposed to do it?
Yeah.
And God's really pleased, or is God really pleased with what we're bringing to the table?
Yeah. And what I think was being said is that we shouldn't just do things because we're supposed to, but because we have the right heart and the right attitude for doing those things. What did Cain do? Like when we're talking about this about humans in the story, what did Cain do after he killed Abel and God confronts him? What did he do?
But he didn't confess. He just kind of like smart-mouthed to God.
Well, he smart-mouthed to God, but he was hiding his sin, right? Just like Adam and Eve in the story before. What is jealousy in this story? What is it that jealousy is? We as all humans all tend to be jealous at some point. It's because we want what other people have, right? That Cain really wanted to be approved by God, and he was jealous. And so we all want approval. We all want to be approved by God in some level. And so we all want what other people have at some level. And after God confronted Cain, he had a choice, right? What does that say about us?
Obviously, we do too, right? We're either gonna
To do what? Well, we have a choice to do what?
Well, we have the choice to come clean with God,
Okay.
or to do the same thing Adam and Eve and Cain did, and go on hiding.
Yeah. We have a choice to hide our sin or to do what's right. Let's see. And then we all have a tendency not to listen to God, right? We all have the tendency to sin. So, and that's going to lead into the next part of our story. So, here we go. The number of humans on the earth grew rapidly. Not only did sin spread from Adam and Eve to their sons, it spread from generation to generation. Even though humans were created in God's image, everyone chose to disobey God. They constantly acted in violence against each other. God saw people's thoughts were completely evil all the time. This broke his heart and made him wish that he had never created humans. So God decided to start over. He said, I will completely wipe out this human race that I have created. I'm so sorry I ever made them. But there was one man named Noah who found grace in the eyes of God. Noah had a close relationship with God and was the only blameless man living on earth at the time. So God said to Noah, I've decided to cover the earth with a flood, destroying everything alive. But I will give you a plan to keep you safe. God then told Noah to build an ark, a large ark, giving him specific instructions and how big to make it and what it should be like. God said to him, "Make an ark from wood and seal it with tar inside and out. Then build many decks and stalls for animals inside of it. I promise to keep you safe in this ark. Bring 7 pairs of animals I have approved for sacrifice, and 1 pair of each of the others. These animals will come to you to be kept alive. And remember, take enough food for your family and for all the animals." So Noah did everything exactly as God told him to do. Just as God said, the floods came, waters burst out from the earth, and rain poured from the sky. When the waters came, Noah and his family and all of the animals boarded the ark. As the waters rose, the ark floated safely on the surface. The flood covered even the tallest mountains, and all living creatures on the earth were destroyed, except for those on the ark. After 40 days, the rain stopped. Many months passed as the waters slowly began to dry up. For weeks, Noah sent out a dove to see if it could find dry land. Finally, the dove returned with an olive leaf in its mouth. So Noah sent the dove out again, and when it didn't come back, he knew it was safe to return to land. As soon as Noah came off the ark, he built an altar, selected pure animals from every species, and sacrificed them to God as a symbol of thankfulness and worship. God was pleased with Noah's sacrifice and said, "I will never again curse the earth, destroying all living things with a flood, even though people's thoughts and actions are bent toward evil from childhood." God blessed Noah and his sons, telling them to be fruitful and multiply, to have many children, and once again fill the earth with people. Then God told Noah and his sons, "I have put all animals under your control. You can use them for food, but you must never eat animals that still have the lifeblood in them. And I will require the blood of anyone who takes another person's life. Life is in the blood, and all life belongs to me." God also said, "A symbol of my promise, I will hang a rainbow in the clouds. When I see the rainbow, I will remember the eternal covenant between God and every living creature on earth." Why did God flood the earth and destroy everything? Yeah.
I have a question about that. Like, if everyone was terrible except for Noah, how did Noah know? Like, how did Noah know about God if everyone was terrible?
How did Noah know about God if everyone was terrible?
I've been wondering that for a while.
That's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to that. Well, without going into a whole, there is a line of throughout Genesis that there are people that follow God even when everybody else is not.
I'm just wondering how they knew about him, because the Bible was like passed through orally,
Yeah.
until someone wrote it down.
Yeah. I think it was passed down by story to him and from
How did the other people didn't know about God? They just chose to keep themselves separated from
yeah. That's a good point.
I mean, perhaps.
Yeah.
So how were others, like, did God make other people, or was it also just one big family tree? If it was just one big, long, singular family tree, then they can be passed down orally and set it off with those who did walk with him physically.
Yeah. I don't know if this story answers that exactly, just telling the story. I mean, you can get into some deep stuff that way about how the family tree worked. That's, because you've got Cain and you've got Seth, and then you've got all the other people from the line of Adam that are there. They were fruitful and they multiplied. And that's what it says. That everybody multiplied. So let's go back to our question on the table. Why did God flood the earth and destroy everything? Human bad. That's the answer on the, but
I feel like it was almost like a lesson.
you think it was a lesson? What did it say in the story about the thoughts of man? The thoughts of man were evil from childhood. I mean, you're talking little kids. The thoughts of, and if you've ever been around a little kid that tells you no, because disobedient, right? It's early on. It's not like, right? You know what I mean? Lying, so so the thoughts were evil, and then it just continually got worse, right? And it says that there was violence everywhere. They were killing each other, murdering each other for no reason. There was a lot of evil going on. So do you think God had a good reason to do this?
Well, I mean, I think he had every right to do so.
He had every right to do?
He had every right to do so.
Yeah.
Being as a God of justice and, having, being from the point of, I don't know. Being a God of justice and that
Yeah.
he had every right to enact said justice.
So being God and having, being just, he had every right to enact justice. So why do you think Noah and his family were spared?
I think they were the closest that he's had to like the original creation itself because they were so like willing and so like they loved God and they followed him so well. Whilst everyone else nowhere near of how like how he created them in the first place. So where they followed no matter if they knew good from evil and the fact that they can sin and the fact of all these other factors, but they still followed him.
Okay. So I don't know if I can repeat all that. Why were Noah and his family spared? So
I think they lived in small.
yeah.
I think they lived in close enough relationship, not perfect per se, but in
Yeah.
close enough relationship to hear clearly God's direction and be obedient.
Yeah. They lived close enough to God, in relationship to God, to be obedient. To hear and be obedient. Yeah. 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 So
That's again the whole like credited as righteous
yeah.
sort of thing. And basically the whatever saving of Noah and his family is just another example of God's provision for those who follow him.
Okay. What do you think it means to be blameless in this sense? I think that's part of it, what you just said.
Well, I think partly it depends on context, because I think the Old Testament definition of blameless, and the New Testament one might be slightly different.
Well,
But I see it basically as the basically striving to live for God and the credited as righteous.
yeah. So striving to live for God and being credited as righteous, believing God. But that's not sinless, right? No. Do you think maybe the close relationship with God meant that he wasn't hiding his sin, like we see in Adam and Eve and in Cain? Is that so? Yes, he sinned, but he acknowledged his sin and was in relationship with God and didn't hide it. So that could possibly be part of it. So from this story, how does God feel about humans? Not how do you feel about God feeling about humans, but how does God feel about humans?
He thinks it was a mistake, but he still loves them in a way because
Huh.
he said, "I wish I never made them," but he lets Noah and his family live, and then he tells them to multiply, giving humanity a second chance.
Okay. So you're saying he loves them. He's disappointed, but he loves them. Okay. Anybody else? From the story, how does God feel about humans? I think, I think disappointment's a very good answer. I think that's but also there's compassion here because I think the idea that the evilness that is not the best thing and what he had created humanity for. That he may have felt like this is the somewhat compassionate way to deal with it, to keep people from killing each other and not. But he also treats them with compassion at the end, right? He promises not to destroy the earth again. So we're, go ahead.
It just made me think of, Noah and his family were, following God, but they knew these people.
Yeah.
The people, they knew people, even
Mm-hmm.
if they didn't act the way they did. They knew at least some of the people around them where they were.
Yeah.
And whether they were friends with them or not or what.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being on an ark, and knowing that they were going to die? Like knowing that
Yeah.
those people were so far from God that they were going to die, and knowing that there was a way for you. You already know your salvation.
Yeah.
Were they heartbroken for the death of the people around them? Were they, are we?
That's a good question. Are we heartbroken for the people around us that are outside the ark? God has compassion on people, and you've got God keeping humanity alive through his compassion, and then you've got people who are dying and that are on the outside. And what would that be like for Noah? We hadn't got to Moses yet. For Noah and the people inside the ark.
That was a closed covenant.
Yeah.
In the sense that the ark was sealed, right?
Yes.
But our ark is the cross.
Yeah.
And it's open to share, to invite people.
Yeah. So, all right, we're going to try to stay in this story a little bit. No, it's okay. No, it's a really good comment. I know. Yeah, but yeah, no. I want you to discuss. One of the things about doing it this way is we try to stay within the stories that we've told, always looking backwards, not forwards. And so we'll get there in a couple of weeks. We'll get there, and we can go back to that and remember that when we get there, because I think that's important. She was talking about the connection between the ark and the cross. And so, but right now we haven't got to the cross because we're not in that part of the story. It's information we don't have yet when you think about the story. Remember we talked about this being scenes from a movie. And so you're in this part we know because we're outside of it and we know so much about this stuff. But inside, when we're telling the story, and this is meant to be told to people who may not know that at some point, and we have to fight against that as us, because I'm the same way, right? I want to say those things, and so we're moving forward in the story each week, and so, but everything has to go back to the beginning, because this basically falls into 4 parts: the creation, rebellion, redemption, and then restoration. Yeah, I knew it was an R. I got that. Thank you. And so we're still in the rebellion side. But thank you. Yeah, this is a very good point. I just want to trying to keep us on track here. Yeah. So where previously in the story have we seen God blessing and telling people to be fruitful and multiply? Where have we seen in the story so far?
Well, when Adam and Eve were
Yeah.
kicked out of the garden, but then basically
Okay.
with God and then told to.
So they were told to be fruitful and multiply after they were kicked out of the garden. But were they told it before that? Yeah. Yeah. They were told it at when they were created, right? Yeah, they right at the beginning when God created man and woman, he said, "Be fruitful and multiply," and so that's part of the purpose of man. How do you think this might be significant in this part of the story?
It might be his
Okay, it's a reset button, and it's the new Adam and Eve. So
It basically draws parallels with the beginning,
yeah,
and the post-arc beginning.
so it's kind of like he started over, like he planned to, like he was going to take everybody, with the flood, and then create again, but he just used Noah to be the new seed in this. Doesn't it mean that he hadn't given up on humanity at that point? Because he used Noah and his family that way?
I don't think that he gave up on it. I think it's more like he wanted them to have another chance.
Yeah. Well, he hadn't given up on them. That's
Yeah, that's why he did it, 'cause he didn't want to give up on them.
yeah. I think that's true. He didn't want to give up on them, but he felt like he had to.
'Cause there was just so
Yeah.
much corruption
So,
everywhere.
all right. What did God say to Noah about animals and their blood? That part confused you.
So I took it as in like don't eat them while they're like alive.
Okay, don't eat them while they're alive. That's yeah. But what did it say about the blood, though?
The blood is the livelihood?
We don't have a passage to read from, do we?
No.
Wasn't it like the blood is the livelihood or something?
Yes. Life is in the blood, is what you're saying. Yeah. Life is in the blood. And what does it say, though? He says something about that. It's very important. Life belongs to God. All life belongs to God. Life is in the blood, and all life belongs to God. Without going forward, but life belongs to God. That's why Abel's life belonged to God, and so his blood cried out to God. And so, because it belonged to him. What did God say about murder and blood and life? I just kind of said it. Anybody have anything else to say about it?
I mean, besides what you said.
Yeah.
Are you basically taking something away from God?
Huh?
Are you basically taking something away from God or something?
If you murder, you're taking something away from God. Yeah. Because it doesn't belong to you. Taking a life. That's why it's called taking a life. Maybe. Why is it important?
Because it speaks to the inherent value of someone created.
It speaks to the inherent value of someone who is created by God. So what does it say about you? All life belongs to God. What does that say about you? That we belong to God.
What about animal life? Like I was because
Huh.
if all life belongs to him, but he said like killing animals.
Without the blood in them. Because, yeah. Yeah.
Is eating my steak? Yeah, I know.
Your steak is already drained of blood. You just don't know it. So, like when they butcher a cow, they drain the blood. You just think it's bloody. It's not really blood. Sorry, the people online for that. So, you look like you had something to say. No, you don't know. Okay. So.
I don't know. I was just thinking about that because I go hunting a lot for birds. So.
Yeah. But we just don't, that's part of the reason we don't eat blood. Historically, we don't eat blood because God said don't eat things with the blood in it. And haggis or blood pudding. Yeah. 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 We're supposed to have compassion for life.
He tells us you can eat this, but
Yeah.
don't like chop a piece of a cow.
Yeah.
You know, do it in a certain way.
Yeah. So, Jasmine. Yeah. we'll talk about that later. But to answer your question, I think Camille said something that's very interesting and right on, is that, when you talk about animals, eating them for food is one thing, but just going out and killing animals, that's a whole different story. Right? Even in our culture, that's not really. Well, you hunt for sport, but you eat the food, right? Yeah, you don't just kill it and leave it, and that's called psychopath. Just so. Well, but a lot of times that's on the wall has been eaten too. So, it goes to Hibbler's and it's processed. That's what happens. So what does the story teach us about God?
That he provision for those who follow him, and provides a way to move forward for those
Yeah.
who seek it.
God provides for those who are his. God provides a way to move forward, and I think that's good. What else?
We're talking about the entirety of the story, right?
We can go all the way back to Adam and Eve.
That, again, it's another example of God enacting justice where justice was due.
Okay. God warns of coming judgment, and he has an act of grace with the ark, just like he did with Cain by not allowing people to kill Cain. That's an act of grace. What else? Uh-oh. That's me. That's my fault. I hope YouTube doesn't do anything with that,
I think we can see that sometimes, like the things that Noah was instructed to do were countercultural.
Okay.
He was given caught flack for doing things that didn't
Yeah.
make sense other than God told him to do it and he obeyed.
God often asks us to do things that don't make sense to the rest of the world for obedience sake. I think that's good.
But with his
Yeah.
purpose, we don't always understand.
Yeah. A couple of other things. God is powerful. God's in control of nature. We learned that in this because he floods the whole earth, right? And then, again, we go back to God is holy, and he doesn't allow sin to remain in his presence. And so the flood is absolute confirmation that God judges sin. That's, and that sin will be judged every time. So, what else did he promise in this story? This is important too. He wouldn't flood the earth, even though man would continue to sin. Even though we're evil from childhood. Yeah.
Wasn't it meant to be very specific? Because he said, like a promise not to destroy the world again with a flood.
Yes.
Meaning that he will possibly do it again, but not with a flood.
Yeah, that's true. That God won't with water. Yeah. The last thing I want to mention is that God knew what was in the heart of every man. And God knows all things, right? God knows what's in your heart. God knows what's in my heart. And he continues to know. So he knew at the flood the heart of every man. And he knows our hearts. All right. Anybody have anything else they want to say about this week's story or?
I feel like overall, it's like God wants the best for humanity, but it's still our choice in the end to follow him or not.
Yeah, that's right. I think that you have the choice whether to follow God or not. That's part of being created human. That he wants the best for us, and the best for us is always him. That's the reality of it.
Thinking about it as well, it's like, it was Noah and his family's choice to do that, and like
I think God would have started over. I think that's was his plan, was he started over and then he sees Noah and goes, this guy.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
if he knows all things, like, how did he just decide, like, oh, okay, never mind? Like, he just, I don't know, that just, I don't know.
It's a good question. I don't know how to answer that always, Yeah.
Even other people, even prior, this is just complete speculation or something to think about. We hear the story of Noah hearing the direction and following it specifically, and what we hear around him is that all these people are horrible, and there could have been people in previous generations,
Yeah.
or along the way who also had some form of direction from God and chose not to obey.
Yeah.
We don't know that, but
Uh.
that's just a possibility.
And without going too far into this, because it's not really the story we're talking about, is that there's a line within Scripture from Seth to Noah, and those people are the ones who are obedient to God. And if you get into, without going into the other stuff that's involved in the story of Noah, there is and some people will not say this, but the sons of God and the daughters of men have to do with that and what's going on in that part of the story. And so the sons of God are the line of Seth, the daughters of men are the line of Cain, and so there's this tension here about what's going on. Yeah, so now there's other people that will say there's other theories, but yeah, I wrote a paper on that when I was in college, so yeah, I know. Yeah, no. Huh? Yeah, well, that's why I don't want to talk about it too much because it'll confuse you, and then I want you to focus mainly on the story. We can talk about it another time, yeah, because maybe make it for question and answer night or something. So, but
What do I ask for? Like, what would I ask for that? Like, what thing were you talking about on this day? Like, literally just say, what does that mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Sons of God, daughters of men. Ask that later. Yeah. All right. I think we're about done with the live stream stuff, and I'm going to let the live stream people go so they can get ready for the next thing, and I'm going to have to get down and turn on the live stream for the other one downstairs in just a second. So, but any other questions on the live stream over there before I go? Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. We're going to end the live stream here. If they have questions, they can send me a message.